But what are you going to do? One of the other things that you've been critical about is healthcare coverage, and as you put it, it's sick. And I started out as a healthcare journalist, so I'm interested in your views on that.
Sure, and I guess what's probably influencing that chapter in the book was I once covered the business of healthcare and health insurance as well. In fact, that was one of my beats when I was at Business Week. If you look at the statistics, the largest thing that consumers spend money on besides their residence is healthcare. And yet, except for the national publications, there are very few healthcare or business of healthcare reporters out there. So you don't have any coverage about rising healthcare costs or comparing costs between hospitals in a market. You don't have any coverage of the rising cost of health insurance and what's causing the rising cost of health insurance. You don't have any coverage about hospital bills, which I covered extensively when I was in Florida in the 1990s, and the fact that hospitals were charging $10 for 2 Advils. You don't have that coverage anymore.
Well, you do have it. I mean, every now and then there's a big expose in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. I mean, it's and there are some outlets that are dedicated just to covering healthcare, like STAT, which is part of the Boston Globe. But what you're saying is it's not being brought down to the local level?
It's not at the local level.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not at the level that people can take the information and do something with it. Like if I was, if I needed to go have like open heart surgery in the next month, I would be looking at what is the cost at Yale New Haven versus what is the cost at the hospitals in Hartford, here in Connecticut, and what is the safety ratings of those hospitals and the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. I see that at places like Kaiser Health News,
right?
But they do it on a really macro level. One thing I would say about Kaiser Health that I do like is they do the hospital bill of the month, where they dissect what gets charged to somebody, and I think that's great. I wish they did that in every single major market in the United States, because I think that would raise some eyebrows with a lot of consumers.
Yeah. We have some questions in the chat, so I'm going to take them one by one. Bill Holstein, who you may recall, also a former colleague at Business Week, and a very active Overseas Press Club member. He writes, you say that the New York Times is one of the 5 best business reporting outlets, but the Sunday business section has become a joke, complete with comics. What happened to them?
Bill, I'm not going to disagree with you. I do not look at the New York Times Sunday business section, to be honest with you. I look at it Monday through Friday. I look at it for the daily coverage. I've seen some things in the Sunday business section that people have brought to my attention that have made me cringe. So I'm not going to disagree with you on that. What I will say in defense of the Times, that I have 3 former students on the business news desk of the New York Times as reporters. So I do think they're doing great stuff, and I do read their stuff.
All right. Well, maybe that's an advertising issue also. They just don't have the revenue to support a special deeply reported business section on Sundays. I don't know. I mean, I used to work in the New York Times business section, but not the Sunday section.
So, what's surprising to me is that the Times, the Sunday business section is separate.
Yeah.
There's a separate Sunday
editor. It comes under the business editor, but there is a Sunday business editor who runs his or her own show. I think it's a his right now.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another question, and this is kind of coming out of left field, but it seems as though the Quinnipiac poll has not made as much news as it once did. What are the plans for the poll during the next month?
Unfortunately, I do not oversee the poll at Quinnipiac. So I don't really know what to tell you about the poll. I do know that the poll really it looks at things like the national elections. So I would not be surprised if in the next month I saw polls about like what's happening in Pennsylvania, what's happening in Texas, other close races around the country. Um, my opinion of the poll is it's probably one of the best, if not the best, reliable poll out there. Just from what I see about its predictions and then what happens to the results. I did try to get them to do a poll about what people think about business journalism and was unsuccessful.
Oh, don't you have any poll? Bill Holstein asked another good question. How significant has been the collapse or change in control of Business Week, Forbes, and Fortune?
Boy, Bill, that's a great question. It saddens me to see the fact that I think Fortune and both Fortune and Forbes now only publish like 8 issues a year. And Business Week is not a weekly.
No, it is.
It is still a weekly? Okay. Then I stand corrected on
it
that.
publishes, so in the old days when we were there, it published 50 weeks a year, and now I would say 45 weeks a year. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see from Forbes and Fortune that kind of makes me cringe is just the content that they post on their websites, particularly Forbes, where they have these people who just want the prestige of being able to be able to say that they've had an article posted on Forbes. And I see a lot of times things that get posted on Forbes that would not pass muster 20 years ago. And that's, to me, that's a problem.